I'm in love with that song.
I love that song.
I'm in love with that song.
I love that song.
I love that song.
I'm in love with that song.
I love that song.
I'm in love with that song.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of sound, of music, a dimension of the mind. You are moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just discovered the I'm in Love with That Song podcast.
I am your host, Brad Page, and each episode of this podcast, we enter the twilight zone of my favorite songs to uncover the mysteries that lay below the surface of a great song. Longtime listeners of this show probably know that one of my favorite genres of music is the psychedelic garage rock of the 1960s. This was a time when rock was really exploring and pushing all the boundaries, and yet there's a certain innocence or naivete about that music. I just find that combination irresistible. So here's one of the landmark songs from that period. Let's travel back to 1966 with the Electric Prunes and I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night.
I had too much to dream last night. Too much to dream. I'm not ready to face the light. I had too much to dream last night.
We'll be right back after this message. The Electric Prunes were one of a wave of bands to come out of the Los Angeles area in the mid-60s. They released their first single in early 1966. It didn't make the charts, but apparently it impressed Reprise Records enough to sign the band. The group included Jim Lowe on vocals and guitar, Ken Williams on lead guitar, Mark Tulin on bass and keyboards, Preston Ritter on drums, and a guy named Weasel on rhythm guitar. Though they wrote some of their own material, the majority of their songs were written by two women, Nancy Mance and Annette Tucker, two professional songwriters working in L.A. I don't know, it just seems kind of funny to me that these two women were writing these trippy psychedelic songs. At any rate, the band would have preferred to record their own songs, but their producer and record label pushed them to use these outside songwriters. Of course, the Electric Prunes were not the first to use fuzzed-out guitars, effects, and backwards tracks. But along with their producer, Dave Hassinger, they were able to capitalize on those sounds and even market themselves as one of the premier psychedelic bands. They even recorded a radio commercial for the Vox wah-wah pedal.
Now, the Electric Prunes for Vox, bringing you the exciting new sound of the Vox wah-wah pedal. Let the Electric Prunes demonstrate the difference. Play it prunes first without the wah-wah pedal. Now, listen to the difference when you push that Vox wah-wah pedal down. You can even make your guitar sound like a sitar. It's the now sound. It's what's happening. That's why the Electric Prunes, Animals, Herman's Hermits, Paul Revere and the Raiders, Stones, the Seeds are all using the Vox wah-wah pedal, and it works with any amplifier. If you're a professional musician or want to sound like one, get with the new Vox wah-wah pedal at your Vox dealer now.
I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night is the first track on their first album. The song kicks off with a bit of vintage psychedelic guitar feedback from Ken Williams. Williams was fooling around in the studio with a fuzz pedal, a tremolo, and feedback, and it just happened to be captured at the end of a tape. Jim Lowe told the producer to cut off that piece of tape and save it for later. So they ended up flipping it backwards and splicing it onto the beginning of I Had Too Much to Dream, the perfect psychedelic intro. There's a guitar strumming one chord with a heavy tremolo effect on it, while the bass is plucking rapidly between the root note and the octave. There may be another guitar or possibly an organ doubling that bass line, and there's plenty of reverb on everything.
Last night your shadow fell upon my lonely room.
There's a second guitar doubling the vocal line in the right channel. There's plenty of tremolo on that guitar too, and a super fuzz tone. I think they're going for that pseudo sitar sound.
Last night your shadow fell upon my lonely room. I touched your golden hair and tasted your perfume. Your eyes were filled with love the way they used to be. Your gentle hand reached out to comfort me.
Jim Lowe is singing the verses in kind of a dreamy, spaced-out way. I think his vocals are double-tracked, too. Once they hit the pre-chorus, though, he ramps up the intensity. But first, they wake you up from your sleep with some trippy sounds.
Your gentle hand reached out to comfort me.
They use guitars and reverb and God knows what else to make that noise. It's at least a couple of layered tracks in stereo with some right-to-left panning. Let's hear that again in context as it leads into the pre-chorus.
Your gentle hand reached out to comfort me. Then came the dawn, and you were gone. You were gone, gone, gone.
That fuzz guitar is in the left channel, and they've added some backwards guitar on the right. And that will lead us into the first chorus.
I had too much to drink last night. Too much to drink. I'm not ready to face the light. I had too much to drink last night. Last night.
Here's the second verse, and let's see if we can bring up the vocals a bit for this one.
Was empty as I staggered from my bed. I could not bear the image racing through my head. You were so real that I could feel your eagerness. And when you raised your lips for me to kiss.
Here comes the next chorus, and notice how every time there's one of these drum breaks, they add a tambourine to accompany whatever the drum fill is doing.
Came the dawn, and you were gone. You were gone, gone, gone. I had too much to drink last night. Too much to drink. I'm not ready to face the light. I had too much to drink last night.
And you can hear that the drums are panned all the way to the left for the whole song. That's one of those crazy 60s early stereo mixing decisions that you'd never make today. It's just part of the charm of these early experiments using stereo. Listen to the snare drum. I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night by the Electric Prunes. Despite the hype and promotion, this would be their only real hit. They had some chart success with a follow-up single, Get Me to the World on Time, which is another great psychedelic track, but I Had Too Much to Dream is what they're most remembered for. After this, they went on to more ambitious productions, concept albums like Mass in F minor, that are just too much. By then, most of the band had quit and were replaced by studio musicians. Their first two albums, though, are great examples of 60s psychedelic rock, and they're just great fun to listen to. As always, thank you for listening to the I'm in Love with That Song podcast. You can find all of our past episodes on our website, lovethatsongpodcast.com. You can keep in touch with us on Facebook. Just look for the I'm in Love with That Song podcast, or on Podchaser, where you can leave reviews, comments, and feedback. This show is just one of many great podcasts on the Pantheon Podcast Network. If you love music, there's plenty of great shows to be found on the Pantheon Network, so check them out. That will be it for this episode. We will meet again in 2 weeks for the next installment of the I'm in Love with That Song podcast. Until then, remember to support the artists you love by buying their music. And thank you for listening to this episode on the Electric Prunes and I Had Too Much to Dream last night.
I had too much to drink last night.